The city beneath, the ice, a civilization older than Egypt, the call from the frozen abyss. Beneath nearly 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice where pressure could crush even the strongest steel, something is still breathing. Professor Elias Thorne did not find the mineral deposits the government had hoped for. What he found was a city. It was not built. It seemed to have grown out of stone and obsidian, its spiraling architecture defying every known law of physics. Carbon isotope measurements produced a result that silenced the entire expedition. This city had existed 200,000 years before the first stone of the Great Pyramid of Giza was ever laid. The speaking glyphs. When Elias placed his hand upon the central wall of the Grand Hall, known as the Chamber of Judgment, geometric grooves began to glow with a cold, phosphorescent blue. This was not writing. It was pure mathematics. The cycle of ascension. Concentric circles depicting the reversal of Earth's magnetic poles. The cycle of purification. Teardrop-shaped symbols layered atop one another, illustrating great floods and ice ages occurring in a grotesque rhythm, like the heartbeat of a slumbering monster. Elias understood then that this civilization had not vanished by accident. They had waited. They knew that every 26,000 years, the Earth convulses, shuddering to shake parasites from its surface. The eternal prophecy. At the heart of the city stood a black obelisk, suspended mid-air by an immense magnetic force. Etched upon it were 3 monumental points in time, each marking a great annihilation. The first, fire from the heavens, an asteroid impact. The second, water from the depths, the Great Flood. The third, a sun symbol, strangled by gaunt, skeletal hands. Elias glanced at the seismic scanner clipped to his belt. The numbers began to spike wildly. The glyphs on the walls were not history, they were a countdown, and the final number aligned perfectly with today's date. "We are not the dominant species," Elias whispered into his recorder as the ice beneath his feet cracked like thunder. "We are merely grass growing between their seasons of harvest. The mystery remains." The city was not empty. As the ice melted, stone cocoons began to fracture and split open. The former masters of Earth were awakening, preparing for the next cleansing cycle. The tremor rising from deep within the Earth was not an ordinary earthquake. It was the shriek of colossal biological gears grinding back into motion after hundreds of millennia of sleep. As the permafrost encasing the central site collapsed, Professor Elias Thorne finally saw what lay within the cocoons. They were not formed of stone, but of a fossilized organic substance, hard as diamond, yet still alive with flickering currents of neural electricity racing across their surfaces. The awakening of the Primordial Ones. The nearest cocoon ruptured. There was no blood, no amniotic fluid, only a surge of deep violet vapor spilling outward, carrying the sharp scent of ozone and ash. From the wreckage, a being emerged. Form. It stood over 3 meters tall, its skin smooth as a convex mirror, reflecting Elias's own horrified face back at him. It had no eyes. Instead, a vertical fissure split its forehead, radiating a white light, one that seemed capable of seeing straight through the soul. Action. It did not attack. It glided past Elias as if he were nothing more than a ghost, a speck of dust unworthy of notice. The creature moved toward the levitating stone obelisk and laid a long, 7-fingered hand upon it. The symphony of destruction. The instant the being made contact, the entire city beneath the ice erupted in sound. It was not music, but a band of ultra-low frequencies so violent that members of the expedition began bleeding from their ears. Elias looked up at the quartz walls. The symbols that once predicted cycles began to change. They were no longer static carvings. They flowed like a fast-forwarded film. The present moment. The symbol of the sun, shown being strangled, flared into a searing crimson. The horrifying truth. This civilization had not merely predicted destruction, they were its cause. They were the planet's gardeners. Each time humanity reached a certain technological threshold, while severing its bond with nature, these entities awakened to clear the surface of Earth, preparing it for a new seed of life. The final warning. The creature turned back toward Elias. For the first time, a voice resonated directly inside his mind, not through language, but through pure imagery. You have consumed too much and understood too little. The cycle has closed. It is time for Earth to sleep once more, beneath a new layer of ice. Outside the research station, the Antarctic sky, still locked in daytime, suddenly darkened. Colossal spiral clouds spread across the globe, releasing not snow, but black crystalline matter that drained all heat from its surroundings. The end of an era. Elias understood that he was the last witness left to record the history of humankind. With desperate haste, he scribbled the final lines into his journal before his hand froze into rigid stillness. The city was not buried beneath the ice. It is the machine that creates the ice. We did not uncover a lost civilization. We uncovered the scythe of death. Beneath the city, disc-shaped spacecraft forged from black obsidian began to tear themselves free from the ground. They shot upward, piercing the massive ice sheet and surging into the stratosphere, where they would scatter the seeds of an eternal ice age. In the biting cold of the apocalypse, as the black ice began to swallow the land's last fragile hopes, another secret was quietly revealed. Not everyone was willing to resign themselves to becoming ash in the pages of history. The Seed Project, Thieves of Time. Professor Elias Thorne did not die. Just as the cold was about to still his heartbeat, the stone floor beneath him split apart, swallowing him into a plunging tunnel that spiraled deep into the earth. He fell into an entirely different world, the Seed Zero Sanctuary. There, Elias realized, shaken to his core, that he was not alone. A small group of scientists, politicians, and carefully selected nobodies had already gathered, chosen by a secret organization known as the All-Seeing Eye. They had known about the cycle for decades, ever since deciphering ancient Sumerian manuscripts. The descent into the earth. While the gardeners were busy freezing the surface, a network of subterranean cocoon cities. Cocoon cities had been activated deep within Earth's crust. Technology. They drew thermal energy directly from the planet's core to sustain an artificial ecosystem. The cost. To conserve power, 99% of the survivors were placed into deep hibernation. Their bodies were submerged in a chemical solution designed to slow aging to its absolute limit. Through a reinforced observation window, Elias stared in silence. Millions of cocoons hung suspended inside a colossal underground chamber, like the eggs of some alien insect species. The plan was simple and terrifying. Sleep for 26,000 years, one full extinction cycle until the Primordial Ones retreated and Earth grew warm again. The betrayal of memory. But there was one fatal miscalculation the all-seeing eye had never foreseen. Elias discovered that the Primordial Ones did not communicate solely through brainwaves. They could also infest dreams. As millions entered hibernation, the entities began infiltrating the shared neural network of the sleep system. What was meant to be dreamless stasis became a single, collective nightmare. Within their minds, humanity was rebuilding the obsidian cities of the primordials. The psychic energy of millions of interconnected brains was being siphoned away, fueling the freezing engine on the surface. Elias's final choice. Elias stood before the central control console. Two options glowed before him. Sever the connection. Wake everyone instantly. They would live only to die within minutes in a world frozen to 100 degrees below zero. Let them sleep. They would survive the Ice Age. But when they awoke after 26,000 years, they would no longer be human. They would be mental slaves, new vessels for the souls of the Primordial Ones. Outside the steel doors of the control room, violent pounding echoed. Not members of the all-seeing eye, but the altered station guards now fully controlled by the entities, their eyes drained to a cold, blinding white. Instant death or eternal enslavement. Elias glanced at his journal, then at the red button marked Emergency Purge. He knew that whatever he chose, the next dawn of humanity would never be the same. Elias's hand trembled as it hovered over the red button, then stopped. A single thought flared through his mind. If we die in the name of release, this universe will belong forever to the butchers. Humanity could not be just a torn-out chapter. He did not press the purge. He chose a third path, the path of a willing martyr. The plan to steal fire. Elias seized a high-tech thermal suit belonging to the all-seeing eye, fully charged its liquid oxygen canisters, and took the one artifact the Council had kept hidden above all others. The heart of Prometheus, a stabilized antimatter sphere with enough destructive force to melt part of a continent. He did not descend any deeper. Instead, he launched himself upward through the pneumatic transit shafts, blasting through layers of rock and ancient ice, returning to the obsidian city above.